Hi everyone, this is Laris and welcome to another randomly vlog. This time I'm going to talk about my writing process and more particularly about the tools that I use when I'm writing screenplays. Full disclosure, I write mainly short-form narrative fiction, so everything I will mention today will be based on my experience writing screenplays for short films and sketches. If you are writing material that only you will use, or that will be seen by a very limited number of people, you can format your script whichever way you and your team finds is the easiest and quickest, and most of the time you will not need to worry about any screenwriting language standards or formats or any specialized tools. If, however, you will need to share your screenplay with other people, heads of departments, actors, your scripts will need to follow basic standards of format so everyone can be, so to say, on the same page. To achieve this, you will need to use some specialized tools, and today I want to tell you about the ones that I have found work best for my needs. And what's even better, they're very easy to use and they're free. To write screenplays the same way as I do, you will need one plain text editor, one fountain syntax, one after writing. Finally, it would be nice to also have one Dropbox, but it is not an essential ingredient. To start with, you will need a plaintext editor.
What is plaintext editor?
That's a great question, thanks. A plaintext editor is an app that lets you edit text and only text without any formatting at all. It basically saves the sequence of characters that you type, but doesn't carry any information about the size of the text, font face, or any enhancements. In general, you could use a word processor such as Microsoft Word that doesn't do just text, but has lots of other functionality. But it would be a little bit like taking the helicopter to the corner shop when you're out of milk. You could do that, but it's inefficient. Helicopter though. Anyway, as I work on a Mac, my plain text editor of choice is the standard inbuilt TextEdit. Back when I used to work on a PC, I liked their inbuilt Notepad, which works just as fine. So if you're a PC user, you can use Notepad, but for the sake of this demonstration, I will stick with TextEdit, which I'm currently using. When you open TextEdit for the first time, make sure that in your preferences you set plain text as the default format for new documents. Also, as we save the document, you can see that it uses the extension .txt, which is the plain text document extension. Normally, as I'm starting on a new screenplay, I'd write straight away in screenplay format, but for today's demonstration, let's go step by step and start with the freeform text in prose that you might see in a short story. To turn this freeform text into a screenplay, we need to split it into the different elements that a screenplay consists of. Scene headings, action lines, characters, dialogue, parentheticals, and transitions. And as we are identifying these different elements, we need to know what is the correct syntax for each of them, and this is where Fountain comes to help us. Fountain itself is not an app, but rather a language or a syntax format. It was developed by John August, who not only is a very talented and prolific screenwriter, but among other things is one of the hosts of the Script Notes podcast, and in general is the go-to person for all screenwriting related questions. You can check out his YouTube channel and look him up on social media. He's always very open to answer questions. So if we format our plain text screenplay following the syntax of Fountain, it can later be easily converted into a PDF document that will visually be formatted as a screenplay should look like. If you head to fountain.io and click on the syntax heading, you get to a page which explains all the rules for formatting your screenplay. There's the different elements I mentioned before: scene heading, action, character, dialogue, parenthetical, and transition, as well as lots of other things that you might come across as you're writing your screenplay. I won't go through all the rules now, and some of them you'd need only in exceptional cases, but I would advise you to read the page at least once, and remember you can always revisit it if you've forgotten something. But let's now head back to our freeform text and format it into a screenplay. What we have here is a story about two birds sitting on a tree branch having a short dialogue between them. We achieve this by starting with a wide establishing shot of actual birds on a tree, and then, as we get closer to them, we move into a studio where two actors have the dialogue. So let's start with the first scene heading. The story takes place outdoors on a street during day, so we write in all capital letters our first scene heading, which is EXT for exterior, street, and in brackets real life, space dash space, day, and a line break after the scene heading. Then comes the first action line. Action lines don't require any particular formatting other than capitalizing the names of the characters the first time you mention them, capitalizing any important aspects you want to draw the attention of heads of departments to, and having an empty line afterwards. In this case, there is no special formatting needed other than a line break. Now, as we are changing the location and moving into the studio, we have our second scene heading, exterior on the tree branch. And this is in studio, and it's still day. This is followed by another action line, and here we need to capitalize a few words as we are naming a few characters for the first time. And there's an important hair and makeup item to highlight. Next we move to the dialogue, which always needs to be preceded by the character saying it, so we start with the character name in capitals and without a line break afterwards. The dialogue itself doesn't need to be formatted in any specific way other than it doesn't need the quotation marks anymore. Following these syntax rules, we can continue with the rest of the scene. Finally, we want to end the scene by cutting to black, so we add the transition in all capitals. While the story is not really finished, let's assume we wanted to share it with someone already at this stage. Before we export, we can add a title page, which follows very basic formatting. It needs to be the first thing in the document, and it follows the logic of key and colon, followed by the value. So we go to the beginning of the document and show what the title is. What type of credit we are using here, who is the person credited, and what their contact details are. The rules are pretty loose for the title page, other than it having to be the first thing in the document. If you don't want it at all, you can just skip it. And there we have it, a screenplay as a plain text document. Now, this was a very simple scene. We didn't use any parentheticals because the story didn't require, and as I said before, there's a bit more about the syntax that you will need to use for different scenes. So for that, my best advice is to always revisit the fountain syntax page whenever you're not sure about something. But as our screenplay is now ready, it can be converted, and for that I'm using AfterWriting, which is a web-based service. Let's head to afterwriting.com. If you click on the open icon, you can choose what file you want to work with. Let's click on the load file and select the text file we just created. There's a few more options available. You can edit the file, view it, see some statistics, but we just want to export it, so let's click on the save icon. We can choose how we would like to export it. We want it to be a PDF file, so let's download that. We can give it a name and push OK. And if we now open the PDF, we see a beautifully formatted screenplay with a title page, scene headings, action lines, characters, dialogue, and a transition. Now, as you've seen, with these three simple and free tools, you can get the story from your mind onto a correctly formatted PDF that you can then share with your cast and crew as you all work on it. The final tool I wanted to mention today is Dropbox. While Dropbox is not crucial for the writing process itself, I found it a very good resource to facilitate the process, especially if you work on different computers and also want to access your work on the go. The screenplay is saved as a plain text file, which takes very little space, and if you store this document on Dropbox, you can access it from any device where you have Dropbox installed. This includes your phone, as you can just load the plain text document on the Dropbox app and edit it from there. So there you have it. These are the tools that I use for my writing process. And just to recap, it's TextEdit or any other plain text editor to write the screenplay in, the fountain syntax to know how to format the writing, and AfterWriting to then later convert the plain text screenplay into a proper PDF screenplay. And finally, Dropbox for file management and ease of access. Would I say that this setup would work for everyone's needs? Most probably not, but I have found very easy for writing my screenplays for my short films and sketches. And if you are looking for a new tool to try out, definitely give this a go. It's very easy and it's free. So thanks a lot for watching, and if there was anything that wasn't clear or if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And in the description of the video, you can find a link to the plain text screenplay as well as the converted PDF that I used today. And if you're interested in any other screenplay that I've written using this method, let me know. I'd be very happy to share. And if you're curious about how the screenplay I used as an example today turned out, then you can watch the short sketch Bird Lessons. Thanks again, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos about my creative process, behind the scenes, or any other random videos. Thanks!